Hey buddies, you're probably wondering, why should I watch this episode? I'd say this episode would be pretty important. Cancer is becoming more prevalent, not just in the firefighting world, but also everywhere. There isn't a person or family that I have met that hasn't had someone close to them or even themselves have cancer. So why not learn more about all the different types of cancer? March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. In this episode, I speak with Greg Vinson, who's a survivor of rectal cancer. We go through of how he found out he had rectal cancer, but also what it was like for him going through chemo and radiation. We talk about all the in-hospital visits that he had, what he had to go through, what he felt like, but also he talks about what it was like losing his son, Brandon. Brandon died in 2015 at 11 years old, and he had cystic fibrosis. He talks about all the hospital stays, the appointments, and how positive that Brandon stayed throughout everything. So without further ado, enjoy. Thank you so much, Greg, for coming down here, spending some time with me to talk about your life and things that you've gone through. So, Greg, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers that are joining in on this episode.
My name's Greg Vinson. Appreciate you asking me to come down. Glad to be here.
Wow, perfect, man. I appreciate you coming down. So you've got a pretty cool story, I think. I met you through Curtis Huffman. I believe it was last year or the year. It was last year through FDIC.
FDIC, yep.
And that's how I met you, through him. And you had this is Colorectal Awareness Month.
Correct, yes.
Colorectal.
Yes, colorectal, yes.
Okay. And then
not colon rectal, colorectal.
I know. You corrected me on that. I appreciate that. And you had colon cancer.
Rectal, actually. I had rectal.
I knew I was going to mess it up.
That's all right. It's okay.
And you had rectal cancer. So
correct, yes.
Go ahead and explain to me and the people listening in, what is rectal cancer? Like, I mean, obviously it's pretty straightforward, but what happens to the body and what happened to yours?
It was April of 2020, right at the start of COVID. I mean, keep it real, went to the bathroom, saw some blood where it wasn't supposed to be. Very minimal amount, but excuse me, it caught my attention. And so I called my doctor. And, he said, we can actually start seeing patients again tomorrow in clinic. It was, like I said, the height of the COVID stuff. So they weren't seeing, they were doing some virtual stuff. And so he said, I'll get you in tomorrow. And I think I stayed up half the night doing research, and I saw, that it only took a little bit of blood to be cancer. But, the blood could have been several different things. So I went in the next day, and I was going to Hendricks Regional at the time, and the doctor did an exam and saw a couple hemorrhoids, and I said, hey, do me a favor while you're looking in there and make sure my head's not up my ass. And it wasn't. But he said, but I want you to go get checked. I'm going to refer you to the gastroenterologist. And he said, with your job and all that kind of stuff, he said, I think you're fine. He said, but I just want to, rule anything out. So he said, whether they call you tomorrow or 5 months from now, I don't think it'll matter. And so I said, okay, but with all the COVID stuff and everything going on, they didn't call me. And I had a lot of days where, it stayed in the back of my mind. When I first got into the fire department, I would have days where, if I went on a run or something, somebody my age and something happened to them, I just knew it was going to happen to me. And I kind of, as I got older and I kind of got away from that. So, I didn't think too much about it really being anything serious, but I just needed to, get checked out. So, nights I didn't sleep in between the regular doctor's appointment and then the time that, the GI was supposed to call me. So it was about September of 2020.
Real quick, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
Did you have any pain whatsoever when you went to the day you had?
Nope.
Nothing at all.
Never had any kind of pain.
Okay, so it was just a normal going to the bathroom. Just everything was completely normal except for the blood.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd never claimed to be a picture of health or always ate the healthiest. And I like to drink my beer, so I didn't know. So they started asking about like normal bowel movements, and I'm like, I don't know what's normal. It's normal for me, I think. So, but I go in, Or so I called, and I was having it was stressing me out, man, in between those 5 months, and my anxiety was getting bad. And my wife was like, you got to do something because.
Did it get worse? Like when you were going to the bathroom, like the blood coming through because you were stressed?
Man, listen, I went to the bathroom so much, like I think trying to go because I wanted to see if there was any more blood. And I know it sounds crazy, man, but like it was really messing with my mind, my anxiety. But I never saw blood again, never had any kind of pain. Everything else was normal. So
it happened one time?
One time. Yep. One time.
Wow.
That was it. And so I went, and finally, so I called the GI clinic, I'm sorry. I called my primary doctor back and said, hey, they haven't called me. It's been 5 months. And she says, well, I'll call them. So she called them and they called me. And they said they tried to call me. They didn't. I mean, I was so worried about it that I would have called them back, or answered the phone. But at any rate, they make an appointment. And I remember the day they set my appointment, I was working a trade that day, so I made the phone calls and said, hey, I have a doctor's appointment on this day. Like, I need to be able to go to this thing because this is weighing on my mind. If not, it's going to be like another couple months before I get in. They're like, yeah, no problem, get this taken care of. So I go in, see the GI doc, and he, I had just turned 40 a couple months before that, and I go in and he knew that my primary care doctor back 5-6 months ago, said I had a couple hemorrhoids, and he says, I can take a look. They may or may not still be there. Doesn't mean they weren't there. If they're not, he said, I'm kind of reluctant to give you a colonoscopy. You just turned 40. You've only seen blood once. And I was like, listen, man, like how much does it cost? Because peace of mind is priceless. I got to know. And I know that's the only way that I'll be able to, put my mind at ease is to, to have it done. So, we kind of talked a little bit more and he finally agreed to schedule me for a colonoscopy. And he said, but I'm going to have to get creative with the insurance and all. I was like, I don't care what you have to do, but I got to have this done, man. And people think I'm crazy by wanting a colonoscopy, but just the way I am and, my anxiety and all that, like I needed to have it done. So, and he said to me, and I quote, well, we'll schedule it, but I'm confident that I'll be able to send you home and tell you that you have nothing to worry about. And I'll see you back in 10 years. That's exactly what he said to me at the appointment. I said, well, I hope you're right. So we set the appointment I had it September the 29th of 2020 was when I went for the colonoscopy. And, with the prep and all that stuff the day before, man, I was starving. I don't know if anybody knows where Man's Grill is, but my plan was to go there and eat a big breakfast. They give it. I mean, like that's what I wanted my mind put at ease. And had the procedure. And I remember he came in and I was laying there and I was, kind of out of it, from the anesthesia, but he knelt down beside me and his face was as white as that door. And he said, "Are you awake? Can you hear me?" And I said, "Yeah, I can hear you." And he goes, "Well, be glad you saw the blood and be glad we did this." He said, "It was a lot more than I anticipated." He said, "We removed some small polyps, but this is still in there." And he showed me a picture of the what turned out to be a tumor. He didn't tell me right away. He said, I sent it off for a biopsy and it's going to take, we should know within a week whether you'll have to have surgery or we can take it out with a scope. So, it just ruined my day, man. I really thought I was going to have my mind put at ease. So I went home. It was the longest 7 days of my life, waiting to get those results. And so the next, obviously didn't sleep that night. I kept asking my wife, "Do you think, it's cancer?" And she's like, "I don't know." Like at this point, nobody really knew. And I think the doctor knew. I mean, they see that stuff all the time, and I understand why he wasn't telling me. But I sent him a message on the chart thing and said, "Hey, I know you told me not to worry," because that's what he said. "I don't want you to worry about, easy for him to say." He said, but I said, "I didn't sleep last night. I know you told me not to worry, but like, I need to know what you're thinking, And he basically said, "I recommend on waiting on the pathology." And he said something like, any further speculation from me is not going to make you feel any better. Basically, So it was October 6th at 4:44 p.m. I was at the firehouse when he called me and said that it did come back as a colon cancer, and adenocarcinoma. Is an adenocarcinoma. Yep.
So what is that typically? What's like the success rate of getting rid of that?
So, I don't know the number offhand. I did know it. Obviously I did a lot of research and spent a lot of time on the internet. But he did tell me that, he didn't want me to worry. I had a fishing trip coming up. I was going fishing in 4 days. My uncle and I were taking a fishing trip.
Yeah, you can't stop.
Going to play some golf. Yeah, but with the way I get with my anxiety, so he said he thought surgery would take care of it. He said this isn't anything that you have to get fixed tomorrow or the next day. He goes, don't wait 6 months. He said, but, let's, get it scheduled and go fishing, have a good time, keep your phone with you. Your phone's going to start ringing and you're going to get all these phone calls about a nurse navigator, setting up all these appointments. So, and that's what happened. And so Hendricks doesn't do, so the next step was an endoscopic ultrasound where they go in and stage the tumor. Well, Hendricks didn't do that, so they referred me to IU, and then they were going to send me to St. Francis for the surgery, and I said, I'm not bouncing around all over the place, so I'm going to stay at IU. So I went, had the endoscopic ultrasound. They staged it as staged, mainly a 1. Parts of it were a stage 2, it kind of broke through some tissue or whatever. But still, the prognosis was good. They were going for a cure. So then I got set up with the surgeon, and I had a real great team of doctors. So my oncologist is the director of the Simon Cancer Center, and maybe not now. I think he's on the verge of retiring, so they've kind of done some. He's handed that off. But and my surgeon was like the chief colorectal surgeon, whatever they call their head guy, and then my radiation oncologist, was a great guy, young guy, good. So I had a great team of doctors. But after they staged the tumor, I went and saw the surgeon. At the time, I thought there were no lymph nodes involved, but it was just they couldn't see any. So my surgeon said, you still have an 18% chance of having, lymph node involvement. We won't really know until we get in there and do the surgery. So I had the surgery like a month later. I was diagnosed in October, actually, surgery in November. And then didn't have, they told me there's like a 1 to 2% chance I'd have a temporary ostomy bag. I didn't have to have any of that. They did a lower anterior resection, a low anterior resection where they just take it apart and take out all the bad stuff and reconnect everything back together. So no bag, which I was thankful for that. And then he called me a week or two later, and they sent it off to pathology, and they took out 19 lymph nodes during the surgery, and 2 of those lymph nodes came back with cancer cells in them. All the margins were good and clear, but they said, let's got to do some chemo and some radiation. So my surgeon at the time said, I know it sucks. I know it's not what we wanted to do. Excuse me. But he said, that's going to be like putting belt and suspenders on the pants, just an extra step. So I started chemo December the 30th of 2020. Did 4 rounds of that. And then I had 28 days of radiation. Was
the radiation like pinpoint radiation? Or, I may be saying it wrong.
No, well, yeah, no, I know what you mean. So, yeah, so you go in after the
localized.
Localized, I think is, yeah. Sorry. So they just go in and typically, they would do chemo and radiation prior to surgery, but because they didn't know the lymph node involvement, I kind of did things backwards. So they went in and radiated the general area. Of where the tumor was.
Yeah, so you had like the lead vest on and everything, and then they just have one area where it's just pointing straight at.
So basically what I did was, you got to go in and get prepped, and you go in and like obviously I was laying face down. So they kind of mold this thing into like, they get you on the bed however they want you. And then
wearing a gown and everything.
Yeah, gown, everything, yeah. And they mold this thing to fit you. So however I laid with my head down and my arms is how they molded this thing. And so, they got all the computers going, and they put this. Quite frankly, they put a bead at your anal verge. That's what they told me, so they can see where they're going to shoot the radiation. So went through all that. That was really uncomfortable getting set. But then when I started the radiation, it was the whole radiation. Actual shooting it took like 2 minutes. It took me longer.
And you were awake for it all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me longer to drive there than it did to do the radiation.
If you don't mind, this might sound a little bit funny to you, But
I'll laugh if it is.
thank you. So when I went to go I had a surgery done about 5 years ago. I had a back surgery done. And I remember when they were getting me into the operation room, I had surgery on a Friday on the 13th. So I was like, I'm
What a
going
day
to
to have surgery.
Oh yeah, I chose that day actually. I wanted to wear. Is Friday the 13th? Is it Michael Myers or whatever? I wanted to wear the mask, and I was told to do not wear a mask when you come into the hospital. You will be removed. And I'm like, come on, how funny are you guys? Anyways, so I got the gown on. Yeah, I was like, I got the gown on and everything. They wheel me into the operation room, and what you're talking about is they had you like on all fours, basically, right?
You were
on stirrups.
No,
something?
I was face down on a. It's almost like an MRI machine.
Okay.
It's kind of what I was face down
so
on.
they had me get into this thing where I'm looking over at it, and I'm like, and it was on, I'm on elbows and I'm on my knees, and there's this, platform that my body sits on, and my gown, I got nothing underneath because obviously they take everything
I know that
out.
feeling.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's all women except for one dude in there. I'm like, so my bare ass is going to be out exposed, and they're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, I feel very uncomfortable. Like, I'm about to just be bent over in front of all these ladies, and it's just not, the most attractive look. So like, I remember like thinking like in my head, now obviously I was having back surgery, so yours is completely different. So you probably didn't care much at all. But like for me, I was just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I just don't want to be sitting like that, even though I'm going to be out. So like what I'm trying to get to is, were there ever any moments that when you were going through this that you just felt uncomfortable, or were you so headstrong on getting this issue fixed or resolved that you would have done anything?
Well, a little bit of both. So, and man, I make butt jokes all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's funny, not funny to me, but you had to laugh about it. So the best example I can, when I was uncomfortable was, nobody wants to go through this anyway. Right. So I go in to get set for the radiation. I went in on March 19th of 21, and I was starting radiation like a week and a half later. So I go in, and man, I had hadn't even started radiation yet, but I'd had the surgery, so that changed all my bathroom habits and all that stuff. So I go in there, and I went at like 1:00. So I'd used, gone to the bathroom several times that day. I wasn't
because you were doing the whole flush, like flushing through your system and everything.
Well, I'd had the surgery, the low anterior resection already,
Gotcha.
so it changed, everything. I mean, it's abdominal surgery essentially, right? So I go in, and I told them, there was, two females and a guy in there, and the first thing I told them was like, look, it's not going to be the prettiest thing you've seen all day, And so they start laughing or whatever, and they're like, man, we've seen, how many, but, what? Yeah. And I'm like, I get it. But, so I was uncomfortable. So, and I'm laying there, and they put this, like I said, this bead in, I've never even heard of an anal verge, but that's where they told me they were putting it. So, so whatever. So, get done with all that, and then so the doctor comes in. The doctor has to come in and look and make sure your bladder. They want your bladder to be full so that when you shoot the radiation, everything is kind of the same as these pictures and stuff that they're taking. So the doctor comes in one time and says, well, he needs to drink more water. His bladder's not full enough. So I stand up. They go get me a glass of water, and I drink it, and whatever the number had to be, for the bladder. I don't know. So luck would have it, my luck is like a bald guy winning a comb, right? So I'm standing there, and the one girl says, my dad's a firefighter. You might know him. Well, of course, and he worked for another department. And then, so now I'm feeling, what are they going to go home and say, and then one of the other females there, she knew a guy I ride motorcycles with. Who's on another fire department. I mean, so what are the odds? Like that, so I was kind of uncomfortable anyway. I didn't want to do it. And then, I mean, it is what it is, but,
And now all of a sudden it's a small world. You feel like everyone's going to know
excuse
about
me, yeah.
it. Yeah.
So, but as I was laying there, getting set up for the radiation and all that, man, I mean, I started crying tears, like I did not, I mean, it completely changed my life, having to go through all that. So, but to talk about being headstrong, when I got diagnosed, I probably spent, I left work early that night, went home sick. I probably spent 2 hours there after I was off, calling people and telling them. And I thought, I'm going to cry today and fight tomorrow. And that's what I started doing.
Man, so with going through all of that and your chemo and radiation, what were some of the stresses that it left on your family?
All of it. I mean, my wife was a great nurse, man. I would not have been able to take care of me in the situation I was in. And all that, I don't care how, minimal the cancer is or how serious it is. It takes a toll on your family. It takes a toll on your loved ones and your caretakers and all that. Stressful, I lost probably 35 pounds. I was, around like 225, when I got started. I got down to 190 or 195, looked pretty bad, felt pretty bad. Chemo kicked my ass, man. Pardon my language, but just keeping it real.
When you were doing chemo, did you do pill form or what kind of forms?
I did.
Of chemo
I did IV chemo. I did 4 rounds. I went I went on Mondays. My first one was a Wednesday, and I did on December 30th. On 4 days later, on January the 3rd, I was in the emergency room, throwing up, man. It's poison. I mean, the ER doc told me, we're putting poison in your body, man. It's killing all your cells and all that. So, I did chemo every 3 weeks on Monday. Did 4 rounds. IV. I also took somewhere around 2,000 milligrams of oral chemo as well. And so the first time I went to the emergency room, I called and they kind of backed off of some of the oral chemo, So kind of how it worked was started on the oral chemo on the day I started the IV chemo. I took the oral chemo for 14 days. Was off of it for 7. And then I started again on the next time I started the IV chemo. And I also stayed on the oral chemo through my time of radiation when I was done with the IV chemo. But I didn't have to have a port. I got good veins, and so they just stuck me every time I went.
So did you have, now this will be dumb, did you have hair before all this, or did you always shave your head?
No, I've shaved my head for the last 15 or 16 years.
Yeah,
I had hair. Yeah, I didn't lose hair anywhere. Trust me. No, didn't lose hair anywhere.
How crazy would it have been if you started growing hair?
Man, I'd have been mad because I don't want hair. You
don't want hair?
No.
Oh, dude, if I had luscious locks up top like I did when I was like a kid.
Thin is in, fat's where it's at, and bald is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Just remember that. You're a beautiful bald man.
I am lucky with a decent shaped head. Like, I've seen some dudes that have some ugly shaped heads, and I'm like, good God, at least I don't look like that.
I was worried about it, when I got on the job, and that's when I shaved it, was during the academy. And I got an uncle that I'm really close to, and, he shaved his head, and we were actually out at the bar one night. And it was summertime, and I said, I think I want to shave my head. So we left the bar and went over, and he put water in a pan and said, and took an electric razor and said, once I make the first cut, it's over, And I said, make it. He did it and finished it off with the straight razor, man. I've been shaving my head ever since.
I just shaved mine this morning.
So, yeah, I mean, I shave, not every day now so much, I get tired of it, but, I don't let it grow past a couple of days.
Yeah, it's so much easier to take care of anyways.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, when I was going through the chemo, I mean, I just didn't, I'd grow 3 or 4 days because I didn't feel like shaving, but yeah, I like shaving it. So
how often were you just completely exhausted from doing the chemo?
So, like on the first day I would go, I always had about a week and a half after the chemo until the next round where I was feeling pretty good. So I would go on a Monday. I'd come home that day and I felt kind of okay. And then I would go to bed, and that Tuesday, so the next day, man, I felt like crap. So I would be down about a week and a half or so. I would get up, and then I'd, kind of do my thing. And, I've had about another, 7 or 8 days, probably somewhere around in there, where I felt good and, went to do it all over again.
Did you ever talk to anybody else who has gone through rectal cancer or any other type of cancer, just kind of get encouragement? And if you did, who were those guys?
I can't remember the guy's name. I actually only talked to him once or twice. I'd have to look, but he was from the Cancer Support Network, Firefighter. And I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of luck with that. That wasn't what I thought it would be. But I did have a guy reach out, and they always team you up with a guy or a gal, whoever that has gone through the same kind of cancer or, a similar type of cancer. Yeah. So, He called and gave me words of encouragement. He was a survivor, and kind of explained to me kind of what he went through. And I told him my story. And I can't remember at the time. I don't know if I had even started chemo yet. Maybe I'd had 1 or 2 rounds. But I have a great big family. So they were all there, and
so your support network was pretty strong.
Yes, absolutely. My guys at work and my crew and just everybody was amazing. I could not have done it without all the support I had, man. I couldn't have got through it. So
I've seen a lot of the support network in the fire service. Real quick, how long have you been a fireman for?
Well, I started in the fire service in 1994 as a cadet with Decatur Township.
I was just a year old.
I know. Thanks for making me feel old. And then, I obviously, in 98, when I graduated high school and started, actually fighting fire. So about 27 years, probably somewhere around in there total.
Where did you start out
at? Decatur Township. Yeah. I spent about 20 years there total, between my cadet time and being, a volunteer and then a reserve. And then I moved on to, Lawrence Township in 2005. I got hired career there, and then the merger took place in 2011.
Okay.
So I've been with IFD since then.
Okay. And so back to your cancer and the traumatic experience that was for you, your family, and friends. And I understand that you lost a son.
I did.
Back in 2015. His name was Brandon, to cystic fibrosis.
That's correct, yes.
Did that bring up, and he was 11 years old.
Yes.
And I'll say, I'm sorry for the loss of that to you and your
Thank
family.
you.
That sucks. I can't imagine. Did that ever bring up you going to the hospital and sitting in the room, going through these treatments? Did that bring up a lot of past trauma or memories of your son?
Yeah, for sure. I just, part of what helped me stay strong and get through mine was, try not to get choked up here. Sorry if I do.
It's all right.
He fought hard for 11 years and he went through, breathing treatments and, I don't know how much time we spent in Riley Hospital, where he would go in there and spend, he 1 whole year, I think he went to school in there, they had teachers come in. I mean, so that was probably one of the biggest driving forces behind me, staying strong. And, he always had a smile on his face. And he always worried about everybody else. I don't care how sick he was, man. He worried about everybody else. So, yeah, brought back a lot of memories. And I know he would want me to stay strong and fight, so I pushed through it.
Man, I just,
and I have,
that, man.
My other kids, I have an older daughter that's, she's 20, I don't even know, man, pushing 30, I think. She has 3 daughters, so I have 3 granddaughters, and my youngest daughter has just had a baby.
Congratulations.
So I have a grandson. Thank you. And then I have my 2 older boys are both on Wayne Township. They've been on there, I think, 3 years now, which I'm extremely proud of that too. I'm proud of all of them.
Awesome.
They're all doing good for themselves, and it's I don't have to worry about any of them. So that they were all there for me, and whatever I needed, everybody was there. So.
Awesome.
It was a tough, it's been a tough, we've all been through, losing my, youngest son. That was what, 7, almost 8 years ago. It took a toll on all of us. It's still taking a toll on all of us. But then at the time I thought, which that certainly is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but I thought, I would be able to, get past that and go on and live life. And then I got hit, with the whole cancer thing. And so, been a rough few years, man.
It always will just, the way shit goes, I don't understand it, but I don't have any kids, and I haven't ever lost a sibling or anything, but I couldn't imagine losing my brother. I've got an identical twin brother. Dude, if I lose him, that's losing a part of me.
Sure, absolutely, for sure.
That's, if he goes, I feel like I would go, like from a broken heart or something, because I feel like I'm a part of him. I couldn't imagine what it feels like to lose a child. Like,
Brandon, he, always, talked about the fire department. He always wanted to be a firefighter. So, excuse me. So back in 2011, 2011 or 2012. I'm sorry, 2012. He was 7. He was actually, we never told him, but that was, he probably wasn't ever going to be able to, get on the job because of his health problems. But, there was actually a state representative who was a retired firefighter who got the ball rolling and got Brandon sworn in at the State House as an honorary firefighter for the state of Indiana. And then Local 416 brought him in as an honorary union member.
That's really cool.
You got a proclamation at home, and so man, that was a pretty that was a proud moment. A lot of my family, they invited us to the State House, and you can find them on YouTube if you just look up. It's like firefighter Brandon Vinson or what. Search his name, and it's about a 10 or 11-minute segment of the whole swearing in. At the State House, man, it was pretty emotional.
That is awesome.
But yeah, it was. That was probably one of the best days of his life. One of the best days of mine too. So,
with the firefighting family and them helping and stepping up, has that motivated you to try to be as involved as you can in your local and with others going through cancer as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I had kind of somewhat involved in the Colon Cancer Alliance. I've had a lot going, and I try to do more stuff locally, and be an advocate and get the word out. I wrote an article for our union paper and stuff like that, and I've gotten more involved in the local. I did some some light duty time down there. When I was going through my stuff, those guys really helped me out and took care of me. And yeah, and I want people to understand. I mean, you got to know your body. If I would have listened to that doctor, and I do not insult their intelligence by any stretch of the imagination. And I know they go off statistics sometimes, but I knew my body. I knew something wasn't right, and I wasn't going to be happy and satisfied until he reassured me, that everything was all right. So yeah, I've tried to been doing some advocacy work, and get the word out and do some things for, all cancers, but colorectal cancer, easier for me to say, mainly.
I'm still struggling to say that. Colorectal. I keep wanting to say colon rectal. Well, has there been any new treatments that have come out recently with colorectal, or any new studies that have been coming out?
I had, so obviously I learned a lot, going through my treatments and all that stuff. I spent a lot of time, I can tell you this, that before I go, being involved in the Cancer Alliance, and I met one young lady, 21 years old, who's since passed away. By the time she was diagnosed, she was in stage 4 because she kept getting misdiagnosed because she was 21. She was a college student at IU. She would go in with abdominal pain, and they just kind of blow it off and that kind of stuff. I don't feel like you're too young for anything. I don't care what anybody says. Losing my son at 11 and then going through, the cancer. And so there are several people that I kind of read about. I don't know them personally or, never met them, but you wouldn't believe the number of them that are under the age of 40 really that have either had colon or rectal cancer.
Really?
It's astronomical, and then, with cancer surpassing, strokes and heart attack with firefighters, we have a 9% increased chance of getting, cancer over the general public, and we have a 14% chance of it killing us. I advocate for firefighters mainly, but it's for everybody. You got to know your body, and you got to go get screened and get checked out, man.
It's important stuff. I know that, and I know I talk about this guy in almost every episode I do, but Steve Dillman was a big proponent of cancer awareness.
Sure.
And did you ever speak with him at all throughout your time of having cancer?
I did not. Steve came by the firehouse one day and was kind of going around and talking to us about wearing our SCBAs and doing that kind of thing. But I never personally talked to him, about what I was going through or about what he was going through.
Was that about 2015 or so, or what?
Man, it probably, yeah, probably.
Because I remember when he was doing that.
Yeah, it probably
He was
It's
with a group of other guys that
Yes.
had cancer as well.
Yes.
And I remember we were talking about that at his house one day.
Yes.
And every time I had the pleasure to fight an actual fire with Steve at Greenwood, where I work at.
Sure.
And man, it was the coolest thing. It was the coolest thing ever.
Sure.
I looked up to him like my grandpa. You know
Sure.
what I mean? My grandpa passed away, and he stepped into that role. And but he was so calm, cool, and collective. But I remember at the end of it, when we were doing overhaul, I was taking my stuff off, and he turned to me and he goes, "Now, Matt, put all your stuff back on."
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't question him. I was like, "Yes, sir. Put everything back on. I'm doing overhaul, still wearing full SCBA and everything. Everyone else has got their masks off, no masks off. Some still had their gloves on." And I'm looking around. I'm like, I look like an idiot. Like, I look stupid. I don't look cool. Like, these guys have stuff all over their face. They're getting dirty.
Sure.
They're breathing
Yeah.
it in. And then we get back to the firehouse. I never questioned him about it, but he came to me and he goes, "Now, there's a reason why I wanted you to wear everything." He goes, "With all the the way he would say words would crack me up, because obviously, like, he would say them differently or incorrectly. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, it's not carcinogen. Like, the way he would say carcinogens was different.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to correct him. It's Steve.
Right. Sure. You knew what he meant.
Yeah, I knew. You know what he meant. And there was another word that he would always say that he always added an extra syllable in it, and I would always laugh every time he would say it. And I can't remember, I'll figure it out whatever at some point. I think he said it in his episode, but he was talking about how a lot of the research with, like, when you get back, changing your Nomex out and changing, obviously changing your gloves out, cleaning everything, and just that guys just didn't do that, And he goes, "I just wish I would have done it. I wish that we would have taken better care of, cleaning our gear, deconning at the scene, and then taking showers when you get back." And then he'd always tell us, like, just take a shower. And obviously we didn't get a ton of fires where I work at.
Sure.
But whenever we did, he was the guy that was on top of making sure that we were doing that. And it is extremely important. Like, still to this day, there's somebody at my house that has a dirty helmet because it looks cool. And I'm like, clean your helmet, dude, because you touch that every day. And it's the absorption through your skin. Like, I know it's cool. Like, I would love to have dirty shit all the time. But I also want to live when I'm retired. Like, I want to live my life and be able to tell stories and stuff. And
yeah, for sure.
Of all my EMS friends that I do.
Right, sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's, what most of us do mainly anyway. But, the thing that, I've never been a guy to think, it won't happen to me. But, and I don't say this to sound like I have 100 years of experience, but, in my time on, the fire departments are, we used to, if the CO was below 35 parts per million, we would take our mask off and do overhaul. That was standard practice.
Yeah.
Probably at every fire department, I know in the
us,
county, So I was, on the job when that was going on. And, when cancer, started getting big in the fire service, the first thing I said to myself is, why all these years we were able to do that. And no one ever thought about it. We didn't clean our gear, man. We went around with the dirty helmets. It was cool to come back. No one ever thought about it. And so I said, why was 35 parts per million of CO safe back then, but now all of a sudden it's not, and I know there's a lot more research in the way things burn and stuff and all that these days, So it's put a different perspective for me. I keep my stuff on all the time now. And, I never went in a fire, a good fire without my mask. I wasn't ever one of those guys. But, I would always take it off as soon as I could, like everybody did. It was uncomfortable, or, you want to see, you need to be talking on the radio, all those kinds of things, right? So, but, it's a new perspective for me on life, on the job. But you know what? I still love going to work. I still love going to fires.
I love the smell of it.
Yeah, I mean, I still want to do it, and I in the beginning, I didn't know if I was going to be back to work, man. If I was, I didn't know what was going to happen. My prognosis had always been good. They go out about, so I'm still getting, and let me know if I'm jumping around too much here for you.
Do what you want.
I'm still getting CT scans and blood draws.
How often do you do that?
So I'm doing that. No, right now it's every 4 months. So it started out every 3 months. And it goes, so the end of my treatment was in May of 21, which was my end of my radiation. So then it kind of goes from there. So I did every 3 months for a year. Now I'm going to be I was doing every 4 months right now, and I think I got one more 4-month appointment, and then I'll go to every 6 months. Excuse me. I'm still seeing all 3 of my cancer doctors, at different times, and and they each do different things. The blood draws or the or the CT scans. And I tell you, man, when I would do chemo, my doctor would say they always did blood work. So I had a routine where I'd go in, do blood work, see my oncologist, and I'd go do chemo. And he told me, he said, of all the people we see, I don't think anybody ever has any better blood work than you do. My blood work was always good. And I've been getting, PFEs every year for the last, 18 years, and they never caught anything.
That happened recently with another fireman just north of our department. If you don't mind me interrupting.
No, you're fine.
There was a fireman, and I know that Jim Burgess was friends with him, or at least he was somehow related to him by a brother-in-law somehow. But he was a fireman up north from us, and he had just gotten his blood work done by his department, and I believe it was within that next 2 weeks he had a massive heart attack. And he did the heart. I believe he did the heart scan. He did all that stuff, but it still didn't catch anything. So like guys were like going around telling him like, go get your own scans done. Yeah. Like do the ones that the job puts you through. I can't even remember. I can't remember who comes around and does it all.
Public safety
medical. Yeah. But they were like, still just go and do it on your own. Sure. Spend the extra money. So like, I know for me, every 3 months, I'm getting blood work done. Yeah. About every 3 months.
Well, I talked to my doctor, and so they do what the CEA. I can't remember what it's, some kind of something antigen, but it's a tumor, a colon cancer tumor marker. So I asked my doctor actually at my last appointment, a few weeks ago, you have to specifically test. It's kind of like your prostate, they do a PSA. Mm-hmm. So you have to specifically test for that thing. And
you want me to read about it real quick?
No, go ahead. Okay. Have at it.
So it is, I'm not going to say this correctly, so I apologize. The carcinoembryonic antigen test measures the level of CEA in the blood. It's a protein that is normally found in the tissue of a developing baby in the womb. The blood level is of this protein disappears or becomes very low after birth. In adults, its abnormal level of CEA may be a sign of cancer.
Yeah, so that's what they have to specifically test for colon cancer. So, because it didn't metastasize or anything like that, maybe that's why my, red and white blood cells and all that stuff were okay. I don't know, but my doctor told me that, you have to specifically test for it. So that's what they, along with the other blood work, they check my kidney function and liver function along with the CEA. So there's a certain range it has to be in. And I've been still cancer free.
Well, thank God that you're cancer free, but dude, I'm still it's still kind of blowing my mind that it's a protein that's normally found in the tissue of a developing baby. Yeah. So it's not affecting the baby at all. But do you think that it's like still in your DNA at some point? If it could be triggered by something, then it can start to grow.
I think, that's weird. I think we all have cancer cells in our body, and whatever triggers them. They did tell me that, that tumor had probably been in me for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I did some research, and it takes somewhere between 8 and 10 years for a polyp to turn into cancer. So, they don't know for sure how long it was in there, but I'm just lucky, that, I ended up being a stage 3B, I think, because it got into some lymph nodes. But people can, we all think different things, and people can say and think what they want, but I think my son was, staying on me, man, to get it checked out, and that's just what I believe. And, most people say, man, most guys would just ignore it, and move on, and that just wasn't me. Mm-hmm. I want to live and retire and enjoy retirement and do those kinds of things. And so, I had to get checked out, man.
Were they ever thinking at some point, because I know a buddy of mine had this happen. He had blood in his stool. And I remember when he called me and told me about it, I started laughing. And obviously, it's not a laughing matter.
Oh, no, for sure. But when you got any butt jokes saying, man, they're all funny.
I don't have a butt joke right now with it, but he's like, dude, I got blood in my shit. And I was like, what are you doing? Like,
right,
sure, something new,
sure, right.
And he's like, I don't know, I'm really worried. I'm gonna go get a colonoscopy. I'm like, you're 28 years old. Like, dude, if you just want some dude to finger you. Just go ahead and do your own thing. And he's just like, no, I've got to do it. So he ended up doing it. So he went through it all, but it found out he had hemorrhoids but the hemorrhoids were bleeding, and that's what caused it to obviously look like it was something else. But I just remember I went over to his house to check up on him, and it was before the colonoscopy, and he had to do all of the cleanse stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it just sounded like he was spraying water out of a hose.
Yep.
And there's a bathroom, and I could not stop.
It's not
laughing.
real fun.
No, it was like
I've had to do it. I don't know, 3 or 4 times
to the
now,
bathroom, and it doesn't seem like.
I will say this, and I mean, I've heard, some older people say, all the stuff you used to have to drink, but now it's just like Miralax in a Gatorade bottle. So you just taste the Gatorade, and some other things, and you feel it. You better have all your errands ran and plan on staying home, when it starts. But it's not any fun, and it's worth it to get checked, man. I can't stress enough. And I've had some people. I don't know if you know this or not, but I belong to a professional firefighters motorcycle club, called the Axemen. We have 34 chapters across 17 different states.
That's cool.
We have 4 chapters here in Indiana. I'm the president of the Indianapolis chapter, which I'm proud to say my son Brandon was also a part of after he was sworn in at the state house and brought into the union. We had him his own little vest and all that stuff. But a couple of those guys have reached out over the years and said, man, because of you, I scheduled a colonoscopy and they took polyps out. So, as cliche as it sounds, if it affected one person and I got one person to go get this, then I feel like I've helped. And, and along with my family being supportive and, my wife being the greatest nurse ever, taking care of me. Like I said, I wouldn't have been able to take care of me, man, and tolerate me during that time. But my club brothers, man, the guys that I ride with, and I mean, the overwhelming support was phenomenal.
What kind of bike do you have?
I have 2 Harleys. I have a 2013 Street Glide and a 2020 Ultra Limited.
Oh, well, I'm sorry you have a Harley.
So, come on, man.
Apologize about
Cancel
that.
this. I'm leaving.
My brother's got a Harley. He's got. I couldn't tell you. They all look the same, almost about the same to me. But he's got, I think, a Street Glide, 1800, I believe, or something like that.
Probably 1890 cc. I don't know. Yeah, I forget what they
it's
are, but
the 114 cubic.
Yeah.
So he's got that. It's billiard blue. It's a nice bike. I mean, I think it's way overpriced.
You wish you had one?
No, not a Harley. Indian, yeah. I mean, so
Indian's making a comeback, man.
Indian's making a fantastic comeback, and it's more American made than the Harley Davidsons are. 70% of Harley Davidson is only made in the United States. I think it's 60 or 70%, and then it's like I think 78 to 84% of an Indian is made in the United States. The whole front end of a Harley, I think, was from Great Britain, or at least one of their lines were.
Yeah.
But I would love to get an Indian, but right now I've got a Yamaha.
Man.
I got a Jap bike.
I call those Yamaha Harleys.
Yamaha Harleys. I tell you what, dude, it's fast. It's a 1900 cc. It's the Stratoliner. I love it, except for the fact it's a 5-speed.
Yeah,
I don't
slow.
like that. It's
Try to keep up.
well at a higher distance. Like I could, but like it's not comfortable because like the whole bike. I mean, obviously I got 2-inch pipes all the way down the side of the thing, so it's loud. The whole thing just vibrates as I'm going, but it's like.
Is it bigger than 650 cc's? What'd you say?
1900.
Well, we're looking for some. We're looking for some good guys to join the Axemen here. So you should give that a thought, man. Yep, we should talk.
We could talk about it.
All right.
I mean, I love to do like burnouts at stoplights. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that. I don't do that. I just got a new rear tire put on, but I'm going on a ride here what's today? The 14th. I'm going on a ride on the 28th, going down to North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, me, my dad, my brother, and my dad's boss are going, and we're doing the tail. The Tail of Dragon's cool to do, but have you ever gone down and done it?
So I have not. I've had a lot of people that have done it tell me. I've been to Gatlinburg a few times, and I've taken 2.5, 3 hour rides up in the mountains, and people tell me that's better than the Tail. I've never done it. Yeah. I don't have anything to prove, so I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't make a special trip down to do it. I mean, a lot of guys have, and I've heard both sides of it.
If I were to do it, which obviously I've done it now, but if you're gonna go do it, I'd suggest like planning on doing all of the other trail like roads and highways
to compare,
and then do the dragon once or twice.
Sure.
But don't stay down in the cabins down there because you're going to have to do the Tail of the Dragon in the morning and at night. And anytime you need to leave to go anywhere, you're going to have to do.
Do they have beer down there? Because that's where I'd be in a hurry to get to, so I could get beer at the end.
At the cabins down there, it's at the very end of the Tail of the Dragon, right? And at the very end, the road Y's, and you can go off to the one side, you go off to the other side. One takes you to the Charles Hall Skyway, which I really like that.
I've heard some
My favorite part is going from the Dragon to the Cherry Hall Skyway, because you're riding up next to this real wide river. And then there's like these little, I call them settlements, but they're not settlements. They're just little like areas where there's just a little town and shit. But it looks so cool because it's like, it reminds you of like back in the 1900s and stuff. And then you got this real wide river right next to it. And you've got these really cool hotels and these cool homes and like they're really old. That's what I like. And then you got these mountains next to you. I like that stuff. Then when you get on the Cherry Hall Skyway, you're up on the top of ridge. You're just like basically like ridge climbing or ridge hiking when if you're hiking on the Appalachian Trail or something, but you're on the tops of these ridges on the highway going like 80 miles an hour. So that's really cool. But if you go the opposite way, I can't remember the name of it. It's like a minor 49er or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but I haven't done that yet, but we're going to go probably do that when we go.
Nice.
But we stayed down in the cabins, and the restaurant that was down there was closed. So like if we wanted breakfast, we had to ride for 45 minutes just to go get breakfast. So like me, when I'm hungry, I'm not like the most polite person. So I'm already pissed off, and I'm in the morning, I'm just like going through the Dragon as fast as I can on my brother's bike. And I'm just flying through just so I can get some food because I'm just starving. And then we want to go do anything else. You got to ride all the way back to grab your stuff, then go out and ride. And it was just not fun doing that. And I probably did the tail in 3 days, 9 or 10 times.
Really? Yeah.
And I was
like I said,
I was just over it.
There's a lot of people, I've heard a lot of stuff on, I've probably honestly heard more, not negative stuff, but people just didn't, they're like, man, it's nothing that, you can do it to say
it's
you
a bunch
did
of
it,
terms.
but it's,
do it just to say you did it.
Yeah.
So, with the Axemen and you being the president of the Axemen, what is some of the stuff that you guys do as an organization?
So, all across the country, we all the chapters have a charity that, they give to. So here in Indianapolis, we do the Hoosier Burn Camp.
Okay.
We do the local 416 peer support. We raise money for them. And then we do a memorial ride for my son once a year, and we donate that to Riley Hospital.
That's awesome. I'm a Riley kid too.
So.
I love Riley, man.
Yeah. You know what, man? I spent a lot of time in there.
Great place.
And he spent a lot of time in there, and I can't say anything bad. I never really had a bad experience. There was one time that he used to have to go into the OR sometimes and get like his lungs and stuff cleaned out, And so I was there by myself, and it just seemed like it was taking forever. And so I went up I was in the waiting area, and he was actually inpatient, but they took him down. And this is before the new Simon Family Tower. And this has been, obviously several years ago, but, I said, what's going on with my son? What's going on? So they come back out, a few minutes later, they come back out and said, we don't know where he's at. They can't find it. And I'd gone down to his room to take something down there or get something or whatever. Well, when I got back, they came to me and said they couldn't find him.
Your son?
Yeah. And I said, you got about 3 seconds to find him or I'm going in the OR, And it turns out that, he was in the recovery room, recovering in the OR because he had MRSA, would get MRSA sometimes, with the lung infections and all that. That was, and I don't even really call that a bad experience. That was the only time that I got a little uptight, and that kind of thing. But other than that, man, great RTs and great, in fact, great nurses. When he was in, he went in March. Well, so in March of 2015, he was in there. And that was 2 months before he passed. And he loved the wrestling. He loved John Cena. So my cousin, who spent a lot of time with him, got him tickets to John Cena. So they picked him up. So he got
to SummerSlam?
I don't even remember what it was.
If it's 2015, I'm pretty sure that was SummerSlam.
It could have been. I think it was summertime.
I was there at SummerSlam.
Okay, well, he was. They picked him up in a limo at my cousin's house, and they let him out of the hospital for that. Mm-hmm. So we went in, then he went back in, and I remember so in 2013 we went over to St. Louis. So Brandon was diagnosed at 3 weeks old. And
So how did you guys find out?
he just like, you know, like my older two boys, I think, were 9 pounds and 2 ounces. You know, like they were big. You know, he was like, man, I can't remember. Sorry, like 6 pounds and something. You know, small, and like he just wouldn't keep any formula down. You know, when he was a baby, and
So he was constantly vomiting it back up?
yeah, like they called it failure to thrive initially. You know, and all that. So you know, we took him in at the time, and I remember the doctor at the time said. So I remember calling the doctor on a Friday or something and wanting to change his formula. You know, I never even heard of cystic fibrosis, never heard of it. And so he said, well, I don't think that's the problem, but, you know, go ahead and change it or whatever. And he said, come in Monday, you know, and give us a time or whatever. So we take him in Monday. And he mentioned cystic fibrosis. But he said, first thing he said was, don't go home and get on the internet. Well, what's the first thing we did?
Go home and get
on the internet, you know. Saw that it was, you know, terminal and all that, you know, so it freaked me out. And so, so they admitted him into Riley, and they do a sweat test where they wrap this band. I think they wrapped a band around his arm, kind of heat it up, so to speak, I guess, and get sweat from him. And then they do a sweat test is what they call it. So if I remember right, man, it's been a long time ago, but they initially couldn't get enough sweat to diagnose. So they were going to send him home and then bring him back. Well, they tried it one more time, and they got enough, and it came back as a, you know, positive for cystic fibrosis. And he was about three weeks old then. So,
You mind if I read real quick about the
oh
sweat
no,
test?
I have at it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So in case you're wondering what the sweat test and why it's important, the sweat test measures the amount of chloride in sweat. Kids with cystic fibrosis can have 2 to 5 times the normal amount of chloride in their sweat. In a sweat test, the skin is stimulated to produce enough sweat to be absorbed into a special collector and then analyzed. So that's the reason why for that.
Yeah, so I've read about it then probably, but it's just been a long time. Yeah, so man, he started fighting it at 3 weeks old, and you know, we spent a lot of time. But what I was saying was, so during his so in June of 2015, when he went back in March, I think, and after he went to John Cena, you know, and all that, and just, you know, they wanted to. I remember one time they wanted to put him on a ventilator, but they said if we do it, he probably won't come off of it. And I said, well, we're not going to do that yet, you know. And then I remember in June, to tell you how great those nurses and RTs are there at Riley. He was in the ICU, and they met with all of us, you know, my wife and I was there, and then, you know, his mom and you know, her husband were there and all that. They took us in this room and basically said, you look, you know, I mean, there's nothing else we can do. You know, one of us decided DNR. Well, everybody looks at me, you know, I'm the professional, I guess. Well, I don't want to sign, you know, so we talked a little bit, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, it was a lot of emotion, you know, a lot of, you know, should I wait another, you know, 8 hours to see, you know, and he was awake and talking, man. And like, he was, you know, in great spirits.
And they're asking you to sign a DNR, or asking you if you would want to have a DNR for him.
Yeah. You know, he had I don't even remember what mutation it is. I should know, but I did know, but so the lung, his lungs were really bad. And I think what I started to say, if I can back up for a second.
Ahead.
So
sorry.
In 2013, we went to St. Louis Children's Hospital. They referred us over there to do a evaluation, one of the best, you know, children's hospitals around. So we went over there and spent 3 or 4 days and went to a Cardinals game. Sorry, Cardinal fans. But went to a St. Louis game, and they did a bunch of tests, and they said at the time, you know, they didn't think he was sick enough for a lung transplant. That's what we went over there for. You know, we were going to have to move over there, and like, it was going to be, we would have done anything we needed to do. Yeah. But, you know, there was a lot of stuff involved in that. So that we came back, and so I remember it was March of 2015, and it crossed my mind, let's go back over, because he had gotten worse. Let's go back over to St. Louis, you know. So the doctors are like, you know, we can send you over there, but I just don't think, you know, it's like now he's too sick to have the transplant, you know. So I remember asking them at the time, all right, man, how long's he got? Let's, he's, he was 10, I think, or 11 then, I said, but, excuse me, how long has he got? I just tell me. And I think they told me like 2 years. And I got up and think I kicked a chair or something, and like lost my mind, and well, it was like 3 months, he passed. But while he was in there, so he's in ICU, and they decided, they were going to move him down to a regular floor. One of the nurses came in on her day off for free to take care of him. I think we got down to the regular room. Probably, there was a lot of I have a huge family. I can't tell you how many people were there. They let us in the hallway. They put him in a room down on the regular floor. 8 West is where he was always at. And then they give us 1 or 2 more rooms next to him where they didn't put anybody in. I mean, dire situation they would have, but they let us have it, and so he got down. It was on a Sunday. They moved him down there probably, 1 or 2 o'clock, and he passed on the next day at like 5:45 p.m. So, but yeah, man, he had a great life, a short life, but he did a lot more in 11 years than, a lot of kids do in a lifetime. So.
That's tough, man. I'm sorry that you and your family had to go through that, dude.
So, thanks, man. Yeah, it still takes a toll on us, but we do all right. We get through it. So
those nurses there at Riley are amazing.
They are. They
I grew up going to Riley just about every year for a few times a year for stuff.
Sure.
But for the longest time, before I became a fireman, I actually thought to open their doors inside the hospital that you had to say "Open Sesame." Because as I was growing up, I had 7 surgeries on my head, and 6 or 7, I don't know. I struggle remembering stuff, so that's the reason. That's the reason why I'm doing this. But like, they would tell me, it's anytime you come up to a door, say "Open Sesame." Well, I was always with a nurse.
Sure.
And until I got a job working for the fire department, and I had to go into the hospital, one of the first times I went in, and this is me growing up into the hospital, and like. When I'm going to the back, I always said "Open Sesame" up until I was like, 13, 14. And then I never really had to go into the back again. I'd say "Open Sesame." So I go up, I'm like, "Open Sesame." Door doesn't open. I'm like, and I look back, and one of the guys is looking at me like, what are you doing? And then he waves his hand on the door, and the door opens. I'm like, oh my God. For the longest time.
It's been like this the whole time. Yeah.
Like this the whole time. Because I remember they would tell me, look at the door and say "Open Sesame." I'm like, okay. And I do it. The door would open. Right. I'm like, I opened that door.
Right.
So that was a cool experience for me, because those Riley nurses, man, they really, I've chatted with a couple of them before, and they take that job so seriously into heart.
It takes a special person, man, because
it does, to work with kids.
There was a lot of, when we were in there, we spent a lot of time in there, and there were kids that never had any visitors. Mm. It was a horrible. Not a horrible place. I don't mean, it's not like that, but it was rough sometimes.
But it's a hospital, man. Like that stuff is, to be a kid and be alone in there. Yeah. Like I remember waking up sometimes, after surgery, and like I always had somebody next to me.
Sure.
But I remember being in a room by myself, and I was terrified. Terrified. So like to hear that the kids are there and no one's seeing them, dude, that would break my heart.
The older he got, we would, like, if his mom was staying there and she would leave for a couple hours, or I was, but he, when he got old enough, and, he'd call me on the phone, and, we'd talk or whatever. And my mom left, or whatever, like it, when he got old enough to talk. But he was never there overnight alone. We did never do that. So
did that ever strain on your marriage, going through all that with your son?
No, it was, another big support system, he had great parents, great siblings, that loved him and took care of him, and, taught him all the bad things to do, and we would go out some night and come home or whatever, and all the other kids would say that he was cussing, and I knew he was. I'd say, no, he wasn't, like he just was. They're all special, but he was special, you know what I mean? And so, but no, great support system, man, great family, none of that stuff. It was stressful for all of us to see him go through that, and to, be in the hospital, and, that kind of changes everything. But it was, up until the time he passed, man, it was, never, it was all, everybody helped was a huge help. So.
What do you see for your future with cancer awareness for where you work at or the organizations that you work with the Axemen?
I just want to continue to get the word out, to advocate. I know I'm not the only firefighter around that's ever had cancer, but I want to do my part to tell my story. Some people find it, unique, I guess, or, just when I tell them that I pursued it and, that and how I found it and things like that, people get surprised, by that, because I was young. I was only 40, and the age, now has dropped to 45, but it was 50 for a colonoscopy, and it wasn't too long after, I was still going through my chemo stuff that I have an aunt that was diagnosed, with colon cancer, man.
Really?
Yeah. And so, her and I talked a little bit, and I kind of let her know, she just had to have surgery, thank God. She didn't require any chemo.
Hers was pretty early on.
Yeah.
Okay.
She didn't require any chemo or radiation or anything, good for her. But, I just want to advocate, and, I have no problem for people reaching out and me telling them my story and recommending doctors and things where I go. That's what I've been doing my whole life, is helping people, so that's kind of where I'm at with, the whole thing, is just advocating.
Awesome, man. Is there anything else we want to share?
I don't think so. I just appreciate you having me on again. And I can't stress it enough, to everybody listening to this, your body, if something's not right, go get it checked. I know things are expensive and doctor bills are expensive, but like I said in the beginning, peace of mind is priceless. And, if I had to pay for that colonoscopy myself and all that stuff, I would have, to have my mind put at ease. I probably would have done it, just because, you're not too young for anything, like I said early on as well. And, you gotta, I don't care if you have a toothache, go get it checked, or, something like that. I know it sounds crazy, but that's the perspective that it's put things in for me now. And real quick, I also had 2 hernia surgeries after, I had a hernia, an incisional hernia that developed from the cancer surgery where they took the tumor out in part of my colon. And then, they fixed it, went in laparoscopically, and it didn't take. So back this past November, I went in and cut open and had the same hernia fixed again.
Oh my gosh.
I was off work 8 months for the first time, for the cancer and all that stuff. And then I was off for a couple months after this hernia. So when they fixed the first hernia, I was out of radiation for a couple weeks. They wanted, things to kind of heal up some. And then, so I hope I'm done with surgeries and doctors. I'm not done with doctors, but, hope I'm done with cancer and surgeries. There is a chance of a recurrence. I'll keep getting tested and seeing the doctor for about a total of 5 years. And then it's probably once a year after that. They expect everything to be good. The prognosis has been good the whole time. So I go one day, but I see all the doctors and get all the scans and all the blood work. So I'm not, so one day every 3 or 4 months, I like doing that. I like getting the checkups because it helps keep my mind at ease, and, I can move on. Still makes me a little nervous, getting all that stuff done with the scans and all that. It's a little bit of anxiety. And so that's why they do it all in one day for me. But, just get screened, man. Colonoscopy save lives.
Real quick before we finish on this, you brought up reoccurrences. We just got a guy that used to work on our department. Now he works at another department, but he just had a reoccurrence of cancer. So he's was in remission before, and I believe it was testicular cancer now. So, his name's Nick, but that's all I'll say for his name.
I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and he's going through that now. So if you guys want to pray for somebody, pray for him. And
I plan to reach out to him.
Yeah, perfect.
I just saw yesterday that he's going through that again, so I plan to reach out to him and offer, any help I can give him. So.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, man.
Thanks again for having me, man. I appreciate it.
There you have it, folks. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know I really enjoyed talking with Greg. I also learned a lot about the type of treatments that he went through, and also somewhat of what it's like for someone to go through something like that with so much loss beforehand. If you guys are wanting to see more episodes of More with Stumpo, please check out my Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, anywhere podcasts can be found. I'm also going to start posting them on Rumble as well. If you enjoy Rumble, I know that that's where kind of the next thing is to go. Also follow me on Instagram at More with Stumpo Podcast. I would really appreciate it. And also something too, I just started a Facebook group called True Gentlemen. If you're a man and you're looking for a good group of guys and you're really wanting to reach out there and create a better network, True Gentlemen is for you. You can post anything and everything you want on there as long as it's within reason and it's respectful and morally good. We are there to support and encourage and motivate each other. There's a lot of hate towards men nowadays, especially gentlemen, and I would like to create a better environment for all men. So please check that out. It's called True Gentlemen on Facebook, and if you have any issues trying to find it, contact me on Instagram, More with Stumpo, and I'll help direct you in that path. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and sticking around all the way to the end, and I hope you have a blessed day.